Local Women Magazine presents Local Women Podcast, the show for things that matter.
Today, I am with Emma Bardwell. Now, this is somebody that you're really going to want to listen very carefully to. Emma is a menopause and perimenopause expert. She is a nutritionist, and she's written a book called The Perimenopause Solution. Now, ladies, we know that whenever we come to the menopause and the perimenopause, we begin to feel awful. We put on weight. We just don't feel like ourselves. Now, what Emma is saying is that we're not taught about menopause. We're taught, obviously, whenever we're pregnant, what to eat. We're taught how to feed our children. But for some reason, they have left this part out. So Emma is here to tell us what we need. And the one thing we need is protein. Emma, why do we need protein in our diets whenever we're menopausal?
Kim, you've nailed it already. So yes, that is the take-home message. We need to get more protein in our diet. I see women all the time coming into clinic and they are simply not getting enough. Or if they are eating protein, they're eating it for their evening meal, but they're not having it throughout the day. And we know from research done, by the Coconut Collab that we need to really inject plenty of protein into our diet. And lots of women just simply aren't aware of that. So the research is kind of pointing more towards, we've all been intermittent fasting and kind of depriving ourselves throughout the day. Yes. The research is pointing more towards front loading calories. So that means actually getting whatever time you break your fast, so whatever time you eat your breakfast, whether it's 7 or 10, making sure that breakfast is really robust and really, contains a really good, healthy injection of protein.
Now, I have to say, this is something that is very close to my heart. I'm a 50-year-old woman, and a couple of years ago, I just began to feel just a bit odd. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I was tired. But then you are tired, and all of a sudden I realized this must be perimenopause, menopause. They're sort of the same in many, it's the same sort of thing. So I began to take a lot of protein. In fact, I began to take 124 grams of protein a day. Oh my goodness.
Girls, game changer.
If you're listening to this, game changer, the weight tumbled off me and I feel great. So let's talk. What should we be eating for our breakfast?
It's really interesting, just to loop back to what you've just said, it's really interesting that protein does really help with weight loss.
So I think fast.
Yeah, exactly. And also what's happening is you're actually adding in to your diet rather than depriving yourself and taking things out. So yeah, you'll get protein from lots of different places. We often talk about eggs and meat and fish. But, there are lots of plant-based proteins too, so things like soya. So the Coconut Collab have produced this high-protein yogurt, which has 10 grams of protein per serving. I know. And it's so... They've made it so quick and easy and simple because, as you've already alluded to, women are really overwhelmed at this time. We've got lots going on. We're the sandwich generation, aren't we? So we're dealing with elderly parents on one hand, kids potentially on the other, and we very rarely give ourselves that time that we need to actually look after ourselves. So protein is really important just for fueling ourselves, for staving off that muscle loss that happens as early, actually, I don't want to alarm anybody, any younger listeners, but as early as a kind of our 30s, mid-30s. So it's really helpful to kind of future-proof our health.
Yes. Now, why do you think this is something that wasn't talked about? Now, obviously, I'm 50, so I come from the generation that doesn't really like to talk about things like that. Yeah. Like it would have been very much, your period and stuff. And it's so funny that now, as a 50-year-old woman, I can sit here and we talk about periods and menopause and sex, and it's great. Have you seen a massive shift in this?
Yeah, it's liberating, isn't it? I think the millennials and Gen X have got a lot to answer for. We should be very appreciative. I have. The conversation is really shifting. Barely a day goes by when you don't see menopause in a headline or on radio. So it is definitely something that I think people are normalizing, which is obviously much needed. Every single woman goes through it. Every man will know somebody who is going to go through it. But there is still a tiny bit of stigma and shame attached. I think because women don't want to, it's almost looked on, aging is looked on as a negative. And actually, when you've got your symptoms under control, when you have got your diet really kind of nailed in, this is an incredibly empowering and positive time of life. Do you feel that?
Yes, because honestly, I'm 50 now. My child is now 16. I've got a job. I've got a house. I've got all those things that I always wanted whenever I was younger. We should be like menno babes, really. This is what I keep saying to people. But I know there's going to be people watching this, and there's going to be men in particular who always contact me watching this. So, what do you need to look out for? I would say it will be like, that sort of grumpiness and irritability, and, you sort of like take against people, that, and also just feeling bad. What are the symptoms that we should be looking out for?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of symptoms at 34 plus, if and it seems to be increasing by the day.
Yes.
But you're right, we always talk about hot flushes and things like that, but it's actually the psychological symptoms, I think, that are the most insidious. So lots of women will complain of, no longer feeling that they're confident enough to drive on the motorway, for example.
Yes.
I know. What's that
Yes.
about?
That.
It's a real loss of confidence. Women who are at the peak of their careers suddenly don't feel like they can present or, talk to people as confidently as they used to. So I think these are the things that we need to really be aware of. And unfortunately, there is this kind of spike in women feeling real kind of depression around this time of life. Even, suicidal ideation does peak around the ages of 45 to 55. So this is it's a very important aspect of this conversation.
And protein, protein, protein. So how do we add this to our diets? Obviously, things like those yogurts, they are just game changers because you can eat it in the car, you can just grab it and go, and that adds a whole 10 grams to say your 100-gram target. What other things should we be adding in on a daily basis?
So lots of things. Eggs, one egg is 6 grams of protein. So if you're having one egg on toast, it's really not enough. I'm usually I tell women to have at least 2, maybe even 3.
With
Yeah.
feta cheese.
Yeah.
Feta
Oh
cheese
my
is
God.
great.
Gorgeous.
And spinach.
Yeah.
Great.
Absolutely. So you really want to make protein the kind of the star of your meal and then build your plate around it. What you've just mentioned is absolutely brilliant. And if you are eating yogurt, layering it up. So adding in some chia seeds, that gives you a bit of extra protein. Putting in some ground flax, perhaps, which gives you the fiber, and then some mixed berries, some nut butter, maybe a sprinkle of cinnamon. That is a really robust meal that will keep you going until, let's say, lunch.
And even sprinkling a little bit of protein powder. I'm not a huge fan, but sometimes needs must.
Oh yeah, no, I think there is actually a place for protein powder if you are really pushed for time. It's really quick and convenient.
And what shouldn't we be eating? This is what I always say. Let's cut a few things out.
Well, I mean, I hate to say you should never eat anything because I think everything needs to be on the table. Otherwise, we tend to get a little bit obsessed with it. But definitely there is a strong argument for reducing the amount of ultra-processed foods that we're eating. Reducing alcohol is really not our best friend at this time, unfortunately. It's a crutch, isn't it? But it really exacerbates those symptoms, particularly those psychological symptoms that we've already talked about. Hot flushes, night sweats, palpitations, anxiety. Spicy food might bring on hot flushes for some women. Yeah, caffeine, potentially. Everyone's different though. So, it's quite individualized.
I find that I've ditched the fizzy drinks and also the pastries. They're kind of a waste. I find that they're just a waste. And I then would replace that with a proteiny type thing, like a little packet of ham or something rather than the sausage roll, I think works well.
Yeah, the pastries don't really give you a lot back, do they?
They don't.
They're good initially, but then...
Yeah, they're lovely, but they're just a little bit of a waste. So let's talk about workplace.
Yeah. So according to the research by the Coconut Collab, it's very obvious that women aren't prepared for what lies ahead, and they also don't feel supported by their workplace, which is pretty shocking. 28% of the women surveyed said that they didn't feel supported, they said that they had to hide their symptoms, which is, it's dreadful. There's lots that can be done. I think normalizing the conversation around menopause in the workplace is super important. Inviting everyone into the conversation. So men, women of all ages, and at all levels of the organization. So, HR, senior management too, and really making sure that everybody in the organization has all the kind of evidence-based information and training that they need to recognize those symptoms.
Yes. let's just start talking about menopause. In the meantime, people can grab hold of a copy of your book, The Menopause Solution. Honestly, girls, this will change your life. I will keep talking about menopause. I will keep banging the drum over here in Northern Ireland for menopause, and we will definitely be heard. Now, how can people find out more? Is there a website they can go to?
Yeah, so you will find the Coconut Collab's new high protein yog in the chilled aisle at Tesco if you want to try that. And if you want to find out more about me, I'm usually on Instagram. That's where I spend most of my time. I'm at emma.bardwell.
Brilliant. I will be following you right now. Thank you so much. And ladies, please listen to this. It will change your life.
Local Women Magazine presents Local Women Podcast, the show for things that matter.